incredible rescue happened that I just learned about. Maybe you've heard about it before. During one of its first training missions, a submarine named the USS Squalus sank off the coast of New Hampshire. A valve failure flooded the engine room, tragically taking the lives of 26 sailors almost instantly. But there were another 33 crew members who were able to lock themselves in this compartment where water had not gotten into. And it took a while for rescue boats to get there. But as they approached the sub, they heard Morse code being tapped. The living crew members were using a hammer to tap on the side of the metal sub, asking one simple question over and over. Is there any hope? See, a rescue at this depth had never been successful before, and everybody knew it. But the response came back, hope is on the way. And using ingenuity and new techniques that they made up on the spot, rescuers risked everything to save the crew members, and every survivor was pulled to safety. And what we see at the Momco is that so many people are asking the exact same question. Is there any hope? Just yesterday, my husband Joe and I were driving to go grocery shopping, and we noticed this car stopped in the middle of an intersection just sitting there holding up traffic. And so we assumed that they were having car problems. And so Joe hopped out of the car to go ask the guy driving if he needed help pushing his car. And so Joe walks over to the driver's side window, and the guy rolls down the window, and Joe asks, "Can I help you?" And the guy looks straight back at him and says, "You can't help me with what I've got going on." His car was fine, but his life had just fallen apart. His wife of 24 years had just called to say that she was leaving and taking the kids. And he was sitting there, paralyzed by the weight of the moment, just sitting straight in traffic. And so right there in the street, Joe prayed with him, and then he drove off. But what it reminded me of was that nearly everyone we know and everyone we pass on the street is going through something. Which is why I want to remind you of something important. I was speaking at a conference a few days ago, and someone said, "Oh, Momco, that's a mom's coffee play date, right?" And I was like, absolutely not, because what we all know is that Momco is not a coffee play date. It's a rescue mission made up of leaders like you who are willing to use ingenuity and scrappy methods to show up in people's most significant moments and bring hope in the name of Jesus. And yes, our methods might look simple. We gather people around tables and share meals and talk about the real things going on in our lives, but that's because it's exactly how God shares his story as well. Did you know in the Bible, the story of God is told through meals? My pastor, Narup Alphonse at Lifegate Church, talked about this in a brilliant sermon he shared. And he talks about how it starts in Genesis, where God sets a table for Adam and Eve, saying, "Eat, partake, you can eat everything except from this one tree. It's all yours to enjoy." And then sin enters the world through a meal. And then later, God's people are in captivity in Egypt. And God tells them that the way they're going to be rescued starts with the meal that they're to prepare, where they slaughter a lamb and put its blood on the doorpost. And it's this foreshadowing of Jesus, the sacrificial lamb. And then Jesus, when he's walking on the earth, takes 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish and feeds 5,000 people with it, showing how God is our provider. And then later, Jesus has his last meal with his friends, where he takes bread and wine and tells them to eat it in remembrance of him. And then after that, we read in Acts that the followers of Jesus broke bread in their homes and ate together, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And then this story culminates in a feast called the Supper of the Lamb that we read about in Revelation. See, hospitality is an essential part of how we get to know God better. And I'm always challenged by the fact that one of the biggest critiques the religious elite had about Jesus was he ate with sinners. He wasn't worried about the conversation getting awkward. Jesus didn't worry about the decor being perfect. In fact, Jesus owned nothing, and he was still hospitable. He just invited himself over to other people's houses, right? Like when he met Zacchaeus, and he's like, "Hey, we're going over to your house, so come down from that tree." Jesus didn't let anything hold him back from being with all different kinds of people and offering them hope and healing, which is something that I feel like God is challenging us with this year at the Momco. I believe a new Jesus revolution is starting, and it's going to be led by courageous leaders like you who are willing to get awkward for the sake of the kingdom, who are willing to have deep conversations and invite people to your meetings who believe different things. And what we're seeing in the world right now is unexpected people are coming to Jesus. College students are flocking to get baptized. The kingdom is breaking through. And I don't know about you, but I want to be in the middle of what God's doing. And I believe the next unexpected movement of God will be spread by the moms. And I don't want to put added pressure on you, but you've been put in leadership for a reason. And there's responsibility that comes with that influence. And this is a year when God is going to ask you to do things that take courage. And when he does, jump in with everything you've got, because what God is doing will be worth the discomfort. And so to wrap up, I always like to offer some practical ideas. And so here are 4 quick tips on how to practice our tenets and live out awkward hospitality as a leader this year. And so the first is audacious faith. In the Bible passage that goes with the theme, Jesus tells Simon to cast his nets on the other side of the boat. And even though he doesn't understand why, Simon responds, "Because you say so, I will." And one of the most powerful things that we can do as leaders is to act the minute that we feel God prompting us, even if it doesn't make sense. Maybe it's a feeling that you should text someone an encouraging message. God prompts us in all different ways. So this year, practice responding fast and not putting it off. The minute you feel prompted, say, "Because you say so, I will," even if it feels awkward. Second, speak kindness. So one of the most powerful practices I've seen meetups implement is something called the hot seat. And what you do is you put one person per table in the hot seat and ask them how they view themselves. And they'll share, for a few minutes about things about themselves that they like and dislike. And then have each person at their table go around and tell them things that they see in them, things they appreciate about them, gifts that they might not even recognize in themselves. Maybe you take one whole meeting and go around the whole table giving everyone a turn in the hot seat. Or perhaps you focus on one person at each table per meeting. But the beautiful thing is most women don't have a lot of opportunities to be reminded who they are. And words are powerful, and this is one way to speak life over people. And then third, own your story. If you want to own your story, I find one helpful way is to ask ourselves the question, what is the story I'm embarrassed to share? Because whatever your story is, there's likely someone sitting in your meetup who will be set free from their own shame or fear because you're willing to talk about something that might be awkward or vulnerable. And God has put you in leadership for a reason to be brave. And so tell the story that you are worried about sharing. And then lastly, enjoy the joy. When I talk to leaders, most of us are future focused and find it hard to enjoy the moment. And that's why one of my biggest priorities in leadership is to be good at enjoying moments, not just feeling like I have to lead through them, because life is hard, but fun helps bond people, and joy is contagious. And one of the best ways to gain jurisdiction as a leader is to move people to both laughter and tears. And so include some fun in your meetings, and that will create room for people to let their guard down and get real about the hard things as well. And so this year, may we make it awkward in a good way. May we invite in women who live differently and think differently and parent differently. And may we earn the reputation that the early followers of Jesus had, that they broke bread together and God added to their number daily those who are being saved. May we set tables that invite all sorts of women to hear the story of God so that they can learn for the first time that hope is on the way.